Hey folks, I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am. I don't even know how to start, so I guess I'll just start at the start. My name's William Shakespeare. Actually, yeah, that one. Before you roll your eyes, this ain't some academic fluff or a lecture. This is just a man telling you how his wife turned his life upside down while wearing a smile and a corset. So here's the setup. I married Anne Hathaway. No, not that one, either, when I was 18. She was 26, already knocked up, and I was a dumb kid who thought I was being noble. Back then, it felt romantic, like we were running off into a wild story. Turns out, I was writing a tragedy and didn't even know it. We lived in Stratford-upon-Avon, and always had this way of talking to people that made them feel like they were the only one in the room. I thought it was charm. I thought it was confidence. Nah, it was manipulation wrapped in lace and soft lies. At first, everything seemed fine. We had 3 kids, Susanna, then the twins, Hamnet and Judith. I loved being a dad more than I ever expected. I'd wake up with ideas in my head and children crawling over my legs. Life was noisy and messy and real. But as the years went by, I started spending more time in London, writing, acting, scraping my way into the theaters. It was exciting. I was finally doing what I loved. And she never really supported it. Said I was chasing fairy tales. Said real men stay home and raise their kids. She didn't care that I was finally being read, watched, and heard. She just cared that I wasn't around to see her throw shade like it was a sport. At first, I told myself we were just growing apart. Long distance is hard, even when the distance is just a few days' ride. But something changed after Hannette died. That broke me. And Anne? She acted like I should just get over it because we still had the other 2. Cold, right? That was the first real crack in the wall. But it wouldn't be the last. All right, so where was I? Yes, the first real crack. But the dam didn't break until I got back from London one summer, sweaty, exhausted, proud of this new play I'd just finished, Much Ado About Nothing, which in hindsight is probably what my marriage was built on. I rode up to the cottage in Stratford, excited to surprise and end the kids. I even brought little trinkets for the girls and a beautiful hand-bound book for Anne, with pressed flowers inside. Thought I was being sweet. But when I walked in, the house was off. You ever walk into your own home and just feel that something's wrong? There was this perfume lingering in the air, something floral and heavy, but not Anne's usual scent. The hearth was cold. The place was tidy, but in that overly clean way, like someone was trying to hide evidence. I found Anne out back, laughing too hard at something this guy named Thomas Green was saying. He was a local lawyer, smug, the kind of man who wears his hat even when there's no sun. I'd seen him once or twice, but didn't think much of it. Until I saw how close they were sitting, how she touched his arm. It wasn't the kind of laugh you give your neighbor. It was the kind of laugh that says I miss you in my bed. I kept it cool. Said hello, played dumb. Watched their faces. Hers dropped for a second, quick flash of panic, and then back to smiles. Later that night, when I unpacked my things, I noticed something missing from the drawer I kept my letters in. Personal ones, poems I wrote for her when I was young and stupid. Gone. In their place was a folded note. Crumpled, like someone tried to throw it away and then changed their mind. I opened it. I wish you didn't have to go home to him. When I'm with you, I don't feel like just a mother. He lives in stories, but you see me. My heart fell out of my chest. I didn't know whether to cry, scream, or throw up. It wasn't signed, but the handwriting? Hers. No question. And I recognized his hand too, scribbled on the back. Soon. Soon what? And? Soon you'll ruin what little I have left? I didn't sleep that night. I laid there next to her, pretending I was asleep while she dreamt, probably of him. Every breath she took was a betrayal I couldn't unhear. I didn't plan the confrontation. I wish I could say I approached it with some dramatic flair, you know, the whole, oh, what light through yonder lyre breaks kind of thing. But the truth is, it was messy. It was ugly. And it started over breakfast. And was slicing bread like nothing was wrong. Smiling like she hadn't written romantic trash to another man and tucked it into my drawer like I'd never find it. She offered me jam like she hadn't shattered my entire world the night before. I stared at her and just said, "Who's Thomas?" Her face didn't even twitch. That scared me more than if she had screamed. "What do you mean?" She said, all innocent. I held up the note. She had the audacity to squint at it like she wasn't sure what it was. "You know exactly what this is," I said. "You wrote it." He replied. "You left it in my drawer." Were you trying to get caught? Still nothing. Then this sigh, this deep, exhausted sigh like I was the problem. She dropped the bread knife and leaned on the table. I didn't want to hurt you, she said. But you were never here, Will. You've been chasing your stupid little plays for years. I needed someone present. Someone who actually sees me. You live in your stories, not in this house. Don't talk to me about stories, I snapped. You are one. A cautionary tale. That hit her. She flinched. Good. Then came the tears. Crocodile tears. She turned it into my fault. Said I was a coward for leaving her alone with 3 kids, that I was selfish, that her loneliness wasn't a betrayal, it was survival. She said, you left us the moment you chose London. I shouted back, and you let another man in the moment I left. We were yelling now. The kids were upstairs, hopefully still asleep, and part of me wanted to burn the whole place down just to get the lies out of the walls. Then she said it. You don't love me. You never did. I didn't respond. Not because it wasn't true, but because it was. After that morning, everything inside me went numb. I didn't leave right away. I should have. A smarter man would have packed his things, mounted his horse, and gone back to London with whatever dignity he had left. But I stayed. I stayed in that house, with that woman, pretending I wasn't drowning in betrayal. I think I was trying to catch my breath, but all I kept breathing in was her lie. It was like a slow-motion punch to the soul. You ever love someone so deeply that when they betray you, it feels like you've lost a piece of your own spine? That was me, and was my wife, the mother of my children. She'd held me after my son died, and now she was holding him. For days I walked around in this fog. I'd pick up a quill and forget what I was writing. I'd sit down to eat and forget to chew. I'd wake up in the middle of the night drenched in sweat, not from nightmares, just from the emptiness. One night, I wandered outside just to get away from the walls. I ended up sitting by the tree where Hannette used to play. I swear, I could still hear his laugh. And suddenly it hit me, he was the only real, pure love I'd ever had in that house. I started crying. I mean, really crying. Loud, snot-nosed, chest-heaving sobs. I hadn't cried like that since the day we buried him. Back then, and had cried with me. Now she was curled up inside, probably dreaming of Thomas and his stupid smug hat. The worst part? I missed her. Even knowing what she'd done. Even hating her. I still missed the version of her I thought I knew. I missed the lies because the truth hurt so much more. And that's when I realized I wasn't mourning just the betrayal. I was mourning the whole illusion. The life I thought I had. The woman I thought I married. The family I thought I could hold together with ink and parchment. Turns out, even the best writer in England can't script his way out of heartbreak. After a week of living in that silent, haunted house, I finally made a decision. I was sitting in the corner of our bedroom, staring at the same 4 walls I used to think held my future. But now, it felt like a museum of lies. And walked in, saw me with my bags half-packed, and crossed her arms like I was the one abandoning ship. You're really leaving, she said, like it was the first real emotion she'd shown in days. I looked at her. I mean, really looked at her. Not the way I used to when I thought she was the love of my life, but like a stranger I didn't owe anything to anymore. Yes, I said, and this time, I'm not coming back. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just nodded and turned away, like I was some tradesman who'd overstayed his welcome. That hurt in a whole new way. I wasn't worth fighting for. Not even out of guilt. I left the next morning before sunrise. Didn't even say goodbye to the kids. I couldn't. I'd fall apart if I did. I figured and could explain it in whatever twisted way she wanted. She was good at rewriting things. I went back to London, dove headfirst into my work. I wrote like a man possessed. I think that's when the darker plays started to show up. Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, betrayal, madness, the crumbling of illusions. You know, relatable content. People say those plays are timeless. Maybe. But for me, they were just therapy with an audience. And stayed in Stratford. I sent money for the kids. Wrote them letters. Visited once or twice a year, kept it civil. But her? We were done. No more poetry. No more sonnets. No more pretending. It didn't fix me. But it saved me. So here's the thing they don't tell you about betrayal. It doesn't stay between 2 people. It spreads. Like mold. And eventually, it starts to rot everything it touches, including your kids. About 6 months after I left Stratford, I got a letter from Judith, my daughter. Not the usual "Papa, we miss you" kind of thing. This one cut deep. She wrote, "Mother says you left us for your fame. That you were never really ours. Is it true you have a mistress in London? Are you ashamed of us? Let me tell you, being called a failure by the world stings. But being turned into a villain in your own child's eyes? That's another level of hell. I paced around my writing room for hours after reading it. Couldn't even finish the scene I was working on. A king was supposed to go mad on the page, but it felt too close to home. I didn't need fiction. I was the tragedy. I sat down and wrote back. Told her the truth, or as much as I could without dragging her mother through the mud. I said, "Your mother and I, we hurt each other. That's the truth. But I've always loved you, and I always will. I write because it's the only way I know how to survive. I left because staying would have destroyed me." Didn't get a reply for a long while. Weeks, maybe months. Then eventually, a short note from Hamlet's twin, "My sweet Judith. I understand now. I still love you." That note. I kept it in my coat pocket for years. Through every cold rehearsal, every empty tavern night, I'd reach in, feel that folded paper, and remember that not everything was lost. But the damage had been done, and had poisoned the well. She didn't just break our marriage, she fractured our family. It wasn't just betrayal between spouses. It was collateral damage. Emotional shrapnel embedded in everyone who loved us. Just when I thought things had started to settle, when I'd found a fragile rhythm in London, balancing heartbreak with rehearsals, I got a letter. Not from Anne. Not from the kids. It was from him. Thomas. The man I only knew from Anne's stupid little love notes. The man who got the side of her she once reserved for me. The man I'd never even met, and yet somehow, I hated with a clarity that surprised even me. The letter started like this. "Dear William, I know this may come as a surprise, but I feel I owe you the courtesy of truth. Not out of respect, because I doubt we have any left between us, but because lies have done enough damage." He went on to say he hadn't known and was still married when they met. That she had told him I had left her emotionally years ago, and that they deserved happiness. He said she hadn't even mentioned the kids at first. He only found out when she invited him to Stratford. He said, and I quote, "She painted you as cold, distant, obsessed with legacy. She made it sound like she was abandoned." I believed her. And then the real gut punch. When I found out the truth. That you were still in her life, still sending money, still writing to your children, I ended it. Apparently, Thomas broke it off. He said he didn't want to be the villain in another man's story. Too late for that. I sat with that letter for hours. Reread it a dozen times. And you know what haunted me the most? Not that she lied to me, but that she lied to him too. That meant it was never about him. It was about her. Control. Attention. Maybe even revenge. She'd rewritten our history for her next performance. And suddenly, I didn't hate Thomas anymore. I hated the story I'd been cast in. Right around the time I was trying to digest that letter from Thomas, an old friend from Stratford showed up in London, Richard Field. Childhood buddy. Grew up a few houses over. We used to play sword fighting with sticks before we learned what real pain was. He came knocking on the door of my rented room above the globe one rainy morning, drenched and grinning like the years hadn't passed. "Will," he said, "you look like someone drowned you in ink." We went to the tavern and talked over ale, as men do when they don't know how to say, "I'm sorry your life fell apart." He didn't bring up, and at first, just caught me up on village gossip, news of mutual friends, and the price of sheep. But after a couple rounds, his tone shifted. He said, "You know, I saw, and the other day." I froze. Just held the mug to my lips like that could keep the words from landing. "She's not doing well," he said. "Acts like nothing's wrong, but the cracks are showing. She tells everyone you're some kind of tyrant. Says you left her with nothing." I nearly spit my drink. "She spends the money you send, though," he added. "New clothes. Garden redone. Always out in town with her head high like she's royalty." That was the kicker. Because I was here, pouring my soul into sonnets and tragedies, losing sleep, losing years, and she was hosting tea parties with my name in her mouth like a curse. But then Richard said something I didn't expect. "She looks lonely, Will." I think she thought the attention would last forever. But people are starting to see through her. They nod and smile, but no one really invites her in anymore. And the kids, they're not as blind as she thinks. That hit different. It didn't erase the betrayal. Didn't undo anything. But for the first time, I stopped picturing her as some cunning villain. I saw what she really was. A woman who set fire to her house and didn't know how to warm herself after .so remember how Judith wrote to ask if I had a mistress in London? At the time, I brushed it off as one of Anne's lies. But then I started hearing the same rumor from everyone, friends, actors, even some of the damn stagehands. Apparently, in Stratford, and had cooked up this whole tragic soap opera, poor abandoned wife, husband gallivanting in the big city, womanizing, fame-hungry, spending his fortune on young actresses and tavern whores. Spoiler alert. I didn't even have time for a mistress. I was either writing, managing actors who fought like toddlers, or dodging debt collectors. The young actress I was allegedly shacked up with? That turned out to be a boy named Thomasina, yeah, that's his stage name, who played Juliet so well that people forgot he had stubble under the makeup, and had planted the seeds, and they took root fast. Even my own mother wrote to ask, delicately, if I had found company in London. Like I was some kind of Renaissance bachelor on a pleasure tour. It was infuriating. Not because of the accusations themselves, but because they were working, and had built her own redemption arc by painting me as the villain. She made it so I couldn't defend myself without sounding guilty. And I realized something brutal. She didn't just betray me, she rewrote me. Took my name, my reputation, my story, and turned it into something she could use. Like a playwright herself, only worse, because she believed her own lies. And the kicker? People loved her version. The sad, loyal wife. The martyr. People eat that stuff up more than the truth. I thought I was writing plays. Turns out I was just when I thought the worst had passed, when I was settling into some kind of reluctant peace with everything, and hit me with a final blow. She showed up in London, unannounced, dressed like some noblewoman from one of my plays, lace gloves and all. She came right to the Globe, during rehearsal, no less. I saw her across the stage like some ghost I hadn't summoned. She walked up like she owned the damn place and said, "William, we need to talk. In private." I was too stunned to say no. We sat in the prop room, ironic, I know, considering who I was dealing with, and she started crying. Not the loud, messy cry. The manipulative, silent, trembling lip type. The kind that once used to undo me. She said, "I made a mistake. I believed someone who only wanted to use me. I thought you'd stopped loving me. I thought you'd left us." I asked her, point blank, "And did you ever love me? Or just the idea of what I could become?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out a document. It was a petition for reconciliation, legal jargon, basically begging the court to compel me to return to Stratford and resume the marriage. "I want us to be a family again," she said. "For the children. For our legacy." "Our legacy," she said, like I was a title deed, not a man. I laughed. I couldn't help it. "You didn't come here for love. You came here because the story is slipping out of your control." Her eyes went flat. The crying stopped. Just like that. "Mask off. You'll regret this, William," she said. "One day they'll remember you as the man who abandoned his wife and children." I stood up. I walked to the door. And I said something I had been holding in for years. "No, Anne. They'll remember me because of what I created, not because of what you destroyed." She left that day, and she never came back. But she still found a way to haunt every stage I ever wrote on. So, after Anne's dramatic London visit, I thought the storm had passed. But life, as it always does, had other plans. A few weeks later, I got a letter from Judith again, this time with a twist. She confessed she'd been talking to, and more than she let on, and had been spinning more lies, this time about me being reckless with money, abandoning the family, even flirting with other women in front of the children. Pretty nasty stuff. But Judith also told me something unexpected. She'd found Anne's hidden journal. A diary, basically, full of Anne's thoughts and true feelings. Not the polished story she told everyone, but raw, bitter, angry truths. And here's the kicker. In that journal, Anne admits to fabricating almost everything about me. She was jealous of my work, my reputation, and the attention I got. She wrote about feeling invisible, ignored, and decided to weaponize lies to get back at me. Judith wanted me to see it. So I did. Reading that journal felt like watching a tragedy unfold from the other side, but this time, I was both the playwright and the victim. She was a master manipulator, but also deeply lonely and desperate. This revelation changed everything. I realized I wasn't just fighting for my name or my career. I was fighting to reclaim my story, my children, and my life from a web of lies spun by someone I once loved. But it also tore my heart to pieces, knowing the woman I married was capable of such betrayal. Not long after I digested the truth from Anne's journal, something happened that shook me to my core. One cold morning, a carriage pulled up outside my lodging. Out stepped a woman I hadn't seen in years, my mother-in-law, Mary Arden. Now, Mary wasn't someone you'd expect to meddle in a London playwright's messy marital affairs. She was quiet, firm, and had the kind of steady presence that could calm storms, except this storm was anything but calm. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. "William," she said, voice low but steady, "I know you think it's gone off the rails. But there's more to this story. You need to hear what she's been through." What followed was a story I never imagined. Mary spoke of Anne's struggles before marriage, her fears of never being good enough, her deep insecurities, and how she felt trapped by expectations she couldn't meet. She said and had confided in her about feeling abandoned long before I left London. But then Mary surprised me. She said she believed Anne's bitterness came from pain and fear, not malice. And that maybe, just maybe, both of us were victims of circumstances neither of us controlled. She urged me to consider forgiveness, not for Anne, but for my own peace. That visit left me torn. Part of me wanted to hold on to anger, to the sense of betrayal. But another part began to wonder if understanding was the key to moving forward. That day marked the beginning of the hardest choice I ever had to make. Just when I thought the emotional storm couldn't get worse, tragedy struck. My son, Hamnet, my namesake and brightest hope, fell ill. At first, it was just a fever. Then it got worse. Much worse. I was torn between my work and my family, but the news hit like a dagger. Hamnet passed away, and with him, a part of my soul died too. The grief was suffocating. And I, despite everything, shared that pain. It was the one thing that neither betrayal nor anger could touch. But even in grief, the wounds it inflicted still throbbed. Hamnet's death changed everything. It forced me to reevaluate what truly mattered. The stage, the fame, the lies, all seemed so hollow compared to the love for my family and the memories we shared. It was the darkest moment of my life, and yet, strangely, the one that began to heal the cracks. I realized forgiveness wouldn't come overnight, and trust might never fully return. But I owed it to Hamnet's memory to try. After Hamnet's passing, everything felt shattered. Like the ground beneath me had crumbled, and I was left trying to build something new from the rubble. And then I didn't magically fix our marriage, far from it. We were broken people, carrying grief and old wounds that festered beneath polite conversations. But slowly, I started focusing on what I could control, my work, my children, and my own peace of mind. I poured myself into writing plays that wrestled with loss, betrayal, love, and forgiveness. Somehow, channeling pain into words helped me breathe again, and kept up appearances back in Stratford, but I saw less of her as time went on. Our paths drifted, less bitterness, more distance. I won't lie, some days were dark, but others brought moments of clarity, where I could see beyond the pain and recognize my own strength. I learned that healing isn't linear. It's messy, unpredictable, and sometimes you have to fall apart before you can put yourself back together. I started trusting myself again, not the husband and wanted me to be, but the man I always was beneath it all. Looking back on everything, Anne's lies, the betrayal, the heartbreak, and the loss, I realize I've learned more about myself than I ever expected. First, people can surprise you. Not always in good ways. But holding on to anger only keeps you chained to the past. Second, love isn't always enough. Sometimes, people change or reveal who they really are, and you have to decide whether to hold on or let go. Third, your story is your story. Don't let anyone else write it for you. Even if the whole world believes the lie, you know your truth. Finally, grief teaches you resilience. Losing Hamnet was a heartbreak that never truly leaves, but it shaped me into someone stronger, more aware, more human. So, if you're reading this, stuck in your own betrayal or heartbreak, here's my advice. Don't be afraid to face the pain. It's brutal but necessary. Find your own voice again. Write your story, live your truth. Forgiveness isn't about them. It's about freeing yourself. And most importantly, remember you are more than the worst thing someone has done to you, and will always be part of my past, but she won't define my future. Thanks for reading my story. If you're going through something similar, know you're not alone. Will,